My body was moving, but I wasn't in control of it. I was suddenly walking across the street with the most intense rage I'd ever felt. How dare she? How dare she? I was in front of Mira before I could get back in control. What the fuck do you think you're doing? She jumped back and her eyes snapped up to my face in fear. Excuse me? She pushed the kid behind her. Let go of my nephew! Who are you? This is my son, she yelled. People were stopping to watch. That is Whitney Walker's son, and you know it, you cold-blooded, callous bitch! Mira's face had gone white. Sam? Give me my fucking nephew, Mira! The boy started quietly crying and whispering, Mommy? In distress. What are you doing? Stop it! Kimber was pulling at my arm, trying to turn me back towards the car, but I wasn't moving. I was seething with fury I had suppressed for 9 years. Owen! Mira started screaming. Owen, please! Brady came sprinting out of the doorway of the shop next door. He took one look at the situation and pushed his wife and the boy behind him and raised his fist to hit me, but there was fear in his eyes. Let go, Sam! I heard Kimber yell. Give me my nephew! I screamed at Owen in a spitting red rage, and suddenly I felt a slap across my face. The strike served its purpose. Reality began to bleed back into the world, and I realized exactly where I was and what I was doing. Kimber was standing in front of me, in between Owen and I. Her hood had fallen down in the commotion, and her hair was spilling out of her beanie and down the back in a wild, bright waterfall of crimson. She looked scared. We were exposed. Owen Grady lowered his fist and seemed to realize who I was. He began screaming at the top of his lungs, Get the cops! Get the sheriff! Get him now! I was already moving, climbing into the driver's seat of Kimber's car, leaving her no choice but to get in the other side. She handed me the keys and I turned the car on and hit the gas. Giving no regard to the slippery roads, Kimber screamed as I fishtailed, trying to get off Main, and then at every corner after, desperate to escape the scene I'd caused. The car slid into a snowdrift just outside of town. I rocked the car in and out of drive and reverse until the tires finally found purchase. And then we were speeding out of town again. There were no other options. I'd blown it. I knew exactly where I needed to go now. Stop! Stop! Get out of the car, Sam! You're high, you're gonna kill us both! Don't do this! Don't do their work for them! That was Whitney's son. That was my nephew. Why would you think that, Sam? Because I know. I put it together years ago. You want me to trust you and your mysterious source? Well, trust me when I say that that kid was my nephew. Okay. Slow down, please. Where do you think you're taking us? Where we should have gone in the first place. No! Kimber was shaking her head wildly. Sam, no, we can't go there, not yet. Yeah, well, I have to go. They know we're here now. The sheriff will be hunting us by nightfall. I know it's now or never. But the car will never make it up that road. Oh, and I'm willing to bet the road is plowed. Going all the way up to... Yes. I was right. Less than 2 miles away and we found that road. It was the one I had used only once, and by all logic I should have barely remembered it. But I had seen that dirt road in my nightmares for years. It was the road I had sped down trying to save my best friend. I'd failed then. I wouldn't now. We drove up the side of the mountain in Kimber's Mazda at an unimaginable speed. I needed to get to Borrasca before the adrenaline wore off. I needed to kill them all. Cleary, Prescott, my father, all the deputies, the local cops, everyone involved, and I needed to die doing it. I wanted to. But then where did that leave Kimber? The higher we got up the mountain, the clearer the air and the clearer my mind. The uncontrollable madness that had puppeted my every action for the last 30 minutes was draining away. I chanced to glance over at Kimber. Her face was as pale as a moonbeam, but her jaw was set in resolve. She was with me 100%, even though we were on a suicide mission. My heart lurched. My death was inevitable, even acceptable, but Kimber had already suffered so much. I couldn't bring her back to Borrasca, could I? I slowed the car to a stop when I realized that I couldn't remember why we were heading up to Borrasca in the first place. They knew we were here, right? No. Or did they? What had I done? I couldn't remember what had happened in town, but I didn't want to admit it. Will you drive us back to the hotel? I asked as my heart slowed and the strength began to drain from my body. No, Kimber said softly, staring into the trees next to us. She turned to look at me. We're already here. The road kept winding up the mountain, but subconsciously or not, I had stopped right at the proverbial gates of the North Central Mine, known as hell on earth to many, and Borrasca to the rest. I felt paralyzed, unable to move or speak or even think. I listened intently for the sound that had scored my nightmares, but all was silent as death. They would know we were here. They would have heard us coming. It was now or never. Stay in the car, Kimber, I told her, and she gave me a look I couldn't read as I opened the door. I walked to the back of the car, popped the trunk, and pulled out a 9mm Beretta I had seen when she showed me the guns on the highway. Checking to make sure the clip was loaded, I chambered around. I knocked gently on Kimber's window and she rolled it down, her eyes glued to the gun in my hands. Stay here, I whispered. And if you hear any gunfire, bolt. She gave me an appraising look. I don't think you're in any space to do this right now. I knelt down in the snow so that I could be eye level with her. I agree with you, but this is the only chance that we have, right? It wasn't a rhetorical question, but she didn't know that. Because of your fucking antics in town? Kimber said icily. She opened the car door. I'll go with you. No, I hissed into the cold mountain air. But she was already walking to the back of the car and opening the trunk. I knew any confrontation with her at this point would be loud, so I had to weigh my options carefully. Kimber pulled out the pump-action shotgun. Do you even know how to use that? I asked. Kimber racked the shotgun with one hand as she walked past me toward the mine. Don't mock me, Sam. You'd be very surprised what I know about guns. Her point taken. I ran to catch up. You know, we do this now. We'll never get the records. They'll be dead, we'll be dead, but Borrasca will continue. Maybe we should just wait. It was your idea to come here now. I'm having second thoughts. But isn't this your life, Sam? A series of second thoughts and regrets? She snapped. Shh. Jesus, Kimber. This is just recon, okay? Don't get spotted. Don't make a fucking sound. I whispered. The snow this far up the mountain was almost a foot deep. There'd been no hiding that we'd already been here, if somehow we got out alive. We made our way into the camp using the trees as cover, and as we moved I noticed the driveway into Borrasca showed no signs of tire tracks in the new snowfall. Were they sleeping up here? Were the sentries on duty even now watching us? I turned around to find Kimber, but she was now more than 10 yards to my left and further away than I could hope to whisper. The closer we got to camp, the more I began to feel it. Something was wrong, very wrong. I could see the dorms through the trees, still standing exactly as I remembered them. However, the Skin Men sign had lost its support and was buckling precariously on the middle. The large building that housed the shiny gentleman was also still standing, and the door had been left slightly ajar so that I could see the conveyor belt feeding into the machine. My blood felt like everything else around me, frozen to ice. Kimber was suddenly beside me, her hand clenched around the shotgun which hung at her side. It's gone, she said louder than I would have liked. And she was right. It was too quiet. It looks that way, I croaked, and bent over at the waist to quiet a sudden dizziness. She turned to look at me, wide-eyed in panic. Tears began to well at the corner of her eyes. I stood up to give her a hug, but she pushed me away. It's gone. It's all gone. I took a few deep breaths. Let me look around. We should check the dorms. Kimber tried to swallow and sob, and I glanced over at her. Had I really just suggested that she walk back to the dorms after what had happened to her there? Was I that fucking cruel? That was a fucking mess. I gently pushed the shotgun up and closer to her chest. Stay here. I stepped out into the clearing, in no particular hurry. If I was going to get shot, I sure as hell wasn't going to die cramped up and tired, but the air in camp was still, and no bullets came to meet me. I wanted to get in and out of the dorms as fast as possible. This was a terrible place, so much suffering, so much pain and death. If there was no enemy to kill, then I wanted to step off the hallowed grounds as quickly as I could and get the fuck out of there. I opened the same door that Kyle and I had first gone into almost 10 years before. The stench still lingered, drifting in the stale air and mingled with the fear and tension that had yet to dissipate after a decade. The beds were gone. I went quickly from room to room and verified that the building was completely empty. Kimber saw me emerge from the other door, and I gave her a shake of my head. I was only a few steps away from the building when I began to feel dizzy again. My vision narrowed and I started to lose control. The last thing I heard was Kimber's voice as she screamed my name. And then came the familiar, welcoming darkness. I could feel I was moving before I even opened my eyes. It was the gentle swaying cadence of a car on the highway. Instead of coming awake slowly like I preferred, I bolted upright in a panic. Kimber was driving and she didn't look away from the road. Are you okay? I asked her. No. I was starting to remember what had happened on the mountain. I'm sorry. Kimber didn't respond. Did I walk to the car? I was sure I knew the answer, but hoped I was wrong. No, you were dragged to the car. It was actually impressive that she could drag a full-grown man through 200 yards of snow. I was constantly underestimating Kimber. Look. I rubbed my face and realized my hands were like ice. I laid them over the heaters on the dashboard. I mean, the good news is that Borrasca is gone and no one is suffering anymore. No one? No one! She yelled. Me, Sam, I'm suffering! Her voice was scratchy. It was obvious she'd been crying and judging by the current time, probably for hours. I'm sorry, that's not what I meant, I said. You don't fucking get it. If Borrasca is gone, then that means my source lied. He lied! Not just about Borrasca, but about everything. Yeah, okay. But we knew that was already a possibility. A possibility, yes, but I still had hope. Hope that he was right about everything. Hope that there was a chance Kyle would come back. Look, we need to accept the facts, okay? Borrasca's gone, dismantled. It clearly hasn't been there for years. So either your source doesn't actually know anything or he's trying to trick you for some reason. But either way, Kimber, he's lying to you. She slammed her hands on the steering wheel and openly sobbed. I'm sorry, Kay, I said quietly. I should have realized Borrasca was gone. With the town gone to shit and everything, why did he even want us here, this guy? Who is he? Doesn't matter anymore. Kimber's voice cracked. Yes, it does. Sure as fuck matters to me. Who was your source, Kimber? She shook her head but said nothing. God damn it, Kimber! Why don't you trust me? I was fully prepared to die at your side today, but you still don't trust me. Trust you, Sam, I do. I know you would never intentionally hurt me, but you've completely given up on everything. Your life, yourself, and on me. You're irrational and unpredictable. If it was just my life at risk, I would tell you everything he told me, but this is about Kyle, too. And what else did he tell you, Kimber? What other promises did he make? She shrugged and wiped the tears away from her face. He said he'd seen some medical records, that he can get them for me, medical information for some of the Borrasca-born babies in town, and my mom and Kyle. Kyle, I snapped. Always back to Kyle. He was our friend, Sam. Yeah, he was my best friend, and I watched him get beaten to death, and I saw the aftermath. You're being fooled, Kimber. Stop torturing yourself. He's gone. I didn't want to pick at my motivations for believing it so adamantly, but I saw in the ether of my mind the raw truth of it. I knew that the real reason I was so sure Kyle was brain dead was because I couldn't bear the thought that I had been wrong, and that I left my best friend alone in the den of monsters. I couldn't handle any more guilt in my life. I know that now, Kimber said, sobs racking her body. I know he's gone. But I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. I was a monster now too, driven by the unseen. And what would you have done if Kyle had been sedated, Kay? No, I really want to know. What do you mean? I would get him out of here, she cried. And then, when you told him the truth about who he is and who you are, you read the same letter I did. Things can never be the same between you two. I would never tell him any of that. Kimber spat. Her eyes were red from crying. Her fair skin was already so pale. She seemed too delicate, but I knew she wasn't. I knew she could take more. I wanted to push her buttons. I wanted her to hit me, scream at me, push me out of the car on the interstate. I needed the pain. I deserved all of it and more. And then I would tell him. Because it would be cruel to lie to him. No! She screamed. It would be cruel to tell him the truth. He could never know, Sam, never. You have to tell him, Kimber. He's your brother. No! No, stop! Please. If that was really your plan all along, then Kyle is lucky he's dead. No! Kimber was now shaking so badly it looked like she was about to have a seizure. She was beginning to lose control of the car. What the fuck was I doing and why? I pushed my fingers into my temples. I wanted to die, but I didn't want her to die. I had to get her to stop the car. Pull over, I said quietly. I had to get out. I had to get her to calm down. Fuck you, she yelled. Pull over, Kimber. I reached over to grab the wheel, but Kimber slammed on the brakes, and we were suddenly skidding off to the side of the road. This time, I didn't hit my head. As it turned out, Kimber had buckled me in her car. The Mazda bumped up against the metal gate that lined the side of the highway, and Kimber threw the car in park. She laid her arms on the steering wheel and bawled like I hadn't seen since her mother died. I sat next to her and watched her pain, stunned by my own callousness and cruelty. I loved this girl like a sister, more than I'd even loved my own. Why was I trying to hurt her? I was so out of control. It wasn't me. It didn't feel like me. The monster inside me begging for a fix, and if I didn't feed it soon, it would continue to control me. I'd get us both killed. What do you want from me, Sam? I held up my hand to touch her back, but remembered that Kimber didn't like being touched. Least of all by me. They took everything from me. My mom, you, my body, my ability to ever have babies. I can't let them take Kyle too, Sam. If there's even a chance. She looked up at me then. Do I not deserve a sliver of happiness? Even just a little before I die. What did I do that was so wrong? Why does God hate me? I shook my head. I had no words. Why do you hate me? I don't. Oh God, I don't, Kimber. I'm so fucking sorry. I'm a piece of shit. I felt like I had to apologize to her every hour or so since she'd come to Chicago. She deserved better than me. She deserved Kyle. But I knew she'd never get him. Why don't you let me drive back to the hotel? The hotel? Why would we go back there? They know we're here. We're almost to the border. Let's just get out of Missouri. But what about our stuff? My heroin. Kimber wiped her eyes. Buy new stuff. It's not worth your life. But we were 7 hours from Chicago, and I knew I was less than half an hour away from a meltdown if I didn't get back to the hotel. We'll just go back real quick, and I'll run up, and I'll get our stuff. I'm poor, Kimber. I need my stuff. I could tell by the thinly veiled look of pain she gave me that she knew the real reason I wanted to backtrack to the Prince Ridge. And then her eyes sort of dulled over, like her soul was melting away. Sure, I don't care anymore. The person I came here for is gone. I'm going to sleep. Kimber crawled into the back seat and curled up into a ball. I'll make it quick, I said, and moved over into the driver's seat. I could hear Kimber crying, all the way back to Drisking. The hotel was quiet. No police presence. No note on our door. No blinking light on the phone. Nothing to confirm that we had indeed been outed. Kimber tiredly climbed the stairs to our room and lay down on the bed as I loaded everything into the car. I let her lie there while I locked myself in the bathroom to get high. When I came out, she seemed to be asleep. Kimber, come on, we gotta go. Nothing. Kimber. I walked over and shook her. No, I'm not going anywhere, she answered. You can go. Take my car. Just leave me here. I wanted to argue with her, but my eyes were already heavy as the H breathed sweet euphoria into my body. I laid down on the other bed and enjoyed the high for a while. If we were going to be killed in our sleep that night, I wanted it to be like this. I dreamt of nothing but blackness, which is what the dope brought me. But slowly I became awake in the darkness to the sound of piercing metal screams floating down from the mountains. Echoes of a beast already slain but still haunting me. The nightmares were back. I turned my head towards the window and watched the snowflakes that were falling through the fluorescent lights over the door. No one had come in the night to kill us yet. I closed my eyes and enjoyed the feeling of heaven still coursing through me. It was a feeling I loved. Waking up high, enjoying it for a few minutes, and trusting that it'll cradle me back to sleep and make me whole in the night. It was a monster I never wanted to kill. It encompassed me. The metal whirling started up again. I opened my eyes to the window as if expecting to see the shiny gentleman standing outside of it, covered in snow. Was it real? It was so hard to tell. I began nodding off again. And then I heard it a third time. The shiny gentleman was quieter than it had been 9 years before, but it was still there, still alive, floating down through the black mountains to my door. I concentrated. My head tried to wander, but I focused on the noise again and again until I was sure. It was real. When I opened my eyes, sunlight was peeking through the curtains. I turned over to look at Kimber's bed. She had her back to me and was still curled into a ball above the covers. It didn't look like she had moved since the night before. Kimber. She didn't respond. Kimber! What do you want, Sam? I heard the quiet reply. I heard it last night. The shiny gentleman. I took a deep breath. Borrasca is still there. She was silent a moment, and then slowly rolled over and looked at me. I didn't hear anything. I did. I swear it's quieter, like it's farther away, but it was there. Kimber sighed and then sat up. She looked at the clock. 7:53 a.m. I don't think you heard anything at all. I furrowed my eyebrows. I know what I heard, Kay. She shrugged and got out of bed. I'm sure you believe it, she said as she shrugged off her parka. Kimber, I said, leaning over. I said, leaning up on one elbow. You saw it yourself, Sam. They're gone. It's over. I haven't heard that sound once in the 3 days we've been here. But I did. I think you probably dreamt it, she said emotionlessly. Sam. What? I snapped my head up. You fucking drifted off again. I'm sick of this shit from you, okay? Your fucking addiction has you turned into a different person. She pointed at my bag, and I knew that she knew exactly how often I had been getting high. Of course, I'm a different person, I said defensively. You haven't seen me in a decade. You know that's not what I meant. I'm talking about the heroin. You're killing yourself, Sam. You look like a ghost already. Kimber threw the parka on a chair and wound a scarf around her neck. She sat cross-legged on the tattered chair in the corner of the room. What is this, an intervention? Because better friends have tried. Liar. Fuck off, Sam. This isn't even about the drugs anymore. I can't rely on you. You're making yourself a fucking liability, nodding off, passing out, not at all in control of yourself, always needing a fucking fix, and you're mean. Vicious even. You forget things that happened hours or even minutes before. I needed you here, Sam. And you fucking let me down. I didn't ask to come on this little mission of yours. I told you not to go back in Chicago. No one put a gun to your head. Well, you may as well have. I wasn't going to let you go alone and get yourself killed. So you came with me and put my life in danger every chance you get? Just forget it. This was all for nothing anyway. They know we're here. They haven't even attempted to stop us because they know how powerless we are. We can't do anything because there's nothing left to expose. We got outsmarted. I heard the mill last night. They just moved it is all. You didn't hear anything. You're unconscious. I know what I fucking heard. You don't know shit. You were too high to even realize where we were half the time. This is bullshit. You haven't been sober in days, maybe weeks, maybe even years. She was right. I hadn't been sober since prison, and even when I was in, I was usually high on something. It had been so long. What do you want from me, Kimber? For most of the conversation, Kimber had been staring out the window. But now she turned her head and looked straight into my soul as if this was the question she had been waiting for. I want you to give me Sam. My Sam. Her words cut so deep I laughed at them. I want to be able to trust what you say, and be able to tell you things too. I know you would never lie to me, Sam, but when you're high, I can never tell if what you're seeing and hearing is real. I'm not even totally sure that it was Mira that you were screaming at yesterday. It was. Wasn't it? I wanted to tell you who my contact was in Drisking. I wanted you to talk to him. He wants to talk to you. And there are things I want to tell you. Things I may as well tell you now since it's over anyway. Like what? Killian Cleary is dead, Sam. What? When? 8 years ago. Huh? I don't know. My heart broke for Kimber. Cleary was fucking dead. She had known it. Kimber should have been able to confront her abuser, cut his dick off, kill him if she felt the need to, and now she'd never have that chance. And she'd known it all along. Kimber. Just fucking stop, Sam. There's more. You know Ambercott Fort and the Triple Tree. They're gone. Someone burned that shit to the fucking ground years ago. There's unrest in Drisking. We could have used that. Fuck. But that's not even remotely the worst thing. The worst truth of all is that I didn't come out here to expose the fucking baby farm. I should have, but I didn't. I didn't even come out here to kill my... She was tripping over her words as she tried to breathe in between them. The man who hurt me. But I really, really wanted to. The reason I came out here was to find out the truth about Kyle or die trying, and I couldn't even do either of those things. I didn't know where Kyle is, and I'm still able to live with that pain. So I knew I could never fight all of this. But you could have. Kimberkin. That's the worst thing. You could have. I brought you out here to do what I can't. Expose them. Kill them. Help all those women we left here 9 years ago. I'm too weak to do it. Too broken. The only person I could have helped was Kyle. I thought that you could handle everything else. It sounds fucking stupid now. No, it doesn't. But you're stronger than you think. So are you. I didn't know if she was right. I had monsters I couldn't kill, and she was stronger than I thought I would ever be. But she was hurting, and I inflicted so much of that pain. Kimber had been buried under all these burdens alone. She was trying to carry all the weight of Borrasca and Kyle by herself, and I had just made her burdens heavier. She couldn't afford my weakness on this campaign, but she still bore it. Just like when we were kids, Kimber was the glue that held everything together. She was even holding me together, but the glue was cracking, and Kimber was about to shatter. And I was the one making the final swings of the hammer. I had to listen to her now. She was telling me that she needed me. She needed me, not who I had become. It had been so long since anyone needed me for anything. And those women all those years ago. What was it that I had promised them? I'll come back and help you all, I promise, as soon as I find Kimber. Well, Kimber was here. And so was I. And so were they. Despite it all, I was sure of what I'd heard. I needed to do better. I needed to be better for her and Kyle and all of those I'd left behind. If Borrasca was still here, it meant that maybe Kimber's source was telling the truth about Kyle, and that meant there was hope. But not if I remained the sickly, unpredictable heroin addict that I had left myself to become. Kimber, in my bag, the side pocket there, rolled up in a pair of pants, there's tinfoil. Dump everything inside of it in the toilet. And flush it. Kimber's dark expression lightened a fraction, and she stood up uncertainly. Then went over to my bag, found the heroin where I told her it would be. She unwrapped the tinfoil, and I watched the sadness cross her face when she saw the size of the brick. It takes a lot for me. Are you sure about this? Was I? No. I hated almost everything about the idea, and my body was already recoiling at the thought. Yes. Kimber came back from the bathroom and sat down on the edge of her bed. What do I do now? I've actually only done this once, and only for a few days. The next 72 hours are going to suck for us both. I can go sleep in the car for a few days if... No, Sam, I'm going to be here, okay? Okay, well, here's what you can expect. I'm going to be a total asshole. Kimber rolled her eyes. Check. I'm gonna feel cold all the time. She looked over at the thermostat, which is already currently at 84. Check. I'm gonna be in pain. A lot of it. I'm going to sleep like shit. She gave me a sympathetic look. Check. And I'm probably going to ask you to find me dope. I wouldn't even know where, and I'll know that. But I'll ask anyway. This will probably start in a few hours, peak somewhere, sometime tomorrow. But I'm a heavy user, so it could last a few days. How long will we checked into this hotel? It's open-ended. Well, that's good. Kimber crawled over the bed to where I was sitting. And for the first time since we were kids, she put her arm around me and lay her head on mine. You're gonna be okay, Sam. You're stronger than you know. I believed her. But the question for me wasn't whether I could do it. With Kimber by my side, I knew I could. The real controversy was who would appear on the other side. I hadn't been sober since I was a teenager, and I had no idea who I was going to be in 3 days. I glanced over at the thermostat and pulled the quilt up higher on my body. I was already feeling a chill. I was true to my words, much to Kimber's distress. By that evening, I was clawing at the walls, and I didn't shut my eyes even once that night due to the pain in my back. Kimber tried to soothe me, put on movies she thought I would like, and curled up next to me at night, but the real comfort was just her presence. Even in spite of her insistence that I drink water every hour that I couldn't keep down. I refused food, though the next day, she finally got me to swallow something in the evening. That night, I slept, and I lived in dreams so real they were almost lucid. More than once, Kimber woke me up because I was crying or shouting. The night after that, I laid in bed all day. Didn't move other than to limp to the bathroom. My body was still in burning pain, though the rest of my body was freezing. Kimber, not knowing what else to do, turned the heater all the way up to 95 degrees. She was down to a tank top and underwear, but still I shivered. The following morning, I woke up with no memory of the night before. Kimber told me she had only woken me up once from my nightmares. It was the 4th day. I had been clean, and though I was still aching and going through heavy withdrawals, my mind felt more clear. Reality was painfully bright and raw, and my actions over the last week were agonizing to remember. I apologized to Kimber, and what I said and done so often that I went from amusing her to downright annoying. I had smoked half a carton in that day, and I'd been detoxing my throat like the smokestack on a coal train. With my new clarity came some raw realizations. I started to notice Kimber on her phone throughout the day, her expressions dubious and worried. I wanted to ask, but I couldn't focus on too much illiteracy yet. We ate more pizza that day. I kept down an entire 2 slices, and Kimber made me drink liters of water, which also stayed down. As we neared the week mark, Kimber started sleeping in her own bed again. I was remembering some of my dreams, and while most of them were nightmares from the years before, I also had some pleasant dreams. Of Whitney and my mother. I was feeling again. And though it hurt most often than not, I realized that not all feelings are bad. It is something I'd forgotten during my many years of numbness. The dreams of my family awaken in me an unrelenting ache that I couldn't ignore. I wanted to see them again, my sister and my mother. One was impossible. The other, maybe not entirely. The fact that I was less than 10 miles away from my mother at any given time warmed me during the cold nights. And then finally, I felt my physical strength begin to return. I was allowing myself to take ibuprofen for the pain, which is not unlike hurling a dart at an elephant. I was beginning to get out of bed, sleeping through the night, and my mind was as crystal clear as ice. The more I thought about our situation, the angrier I became, but it wasn't the festival of rage that had been my life up until that moment. It was a simmering, controlled ire that I was able to rein in and compartmentalize, ready to execute at my leisure. With the mental clarity, I became even more convinced that what I had heard that night was real. They, whoever they were now, had simply moved their operation. I told Kimber my belief. But as much as she wanted to believe her source was legit, I knew she was afraid of hoping again. 9 days after the incident on the mountain, I came out of the shower to find Kimber pacing and sliding worried glances my way. "What's the matter?" I asked as I towel-dried my hair. "Hey, do you think the front desk here sells razors?" "I don't know, I'll ask." I could tell she wanted to say more, but was hesitant. "What is it?" "My contact." "Yeah, what about him?" "He's on his way here." "What? How? You told him where we were?" "No, he already knew. It's no secret, I guess." "Well, that's comforting. Why is he coming here?" "Because he wants to know what the holdup is." What holdup? What does he want from us?" From you, actually." I thought this guy was just giving us hospital records and pointing us towards whatever server the Borrasca database is sitting on. He's, I made a wild gesture with my hands, begging her to continue. "We're never gonna get those records from him, Sam." "What?" She glanced out the window and crossed her arms. "I'm sorry, we never were. He's offering something different and he's here." "I don't fucking like this," I said as I stood up from the bed. I heard someone climbing the stairs outside, heavy footfalls, indicating a large man or possibly someone who just walked like a Neanderthal. Kimber opened the door before he could knock and... Jimmy fucking Prescott walked in. Fuck! I'd been keeping the 9mm next to the bed, but had moved it during my withdrawals in case I wanted to shoot myself in the head. It was currently in the bathroom, completely out of reach. Holy shit. Look at you, fucking Sam Walker. Did you know you look exactly like your dad? What the fuck is he doing here, Kimber? I seethed. She was standing in the corner next to the door, arms crossed, and a grim expression on her face. Don't get mad at her, Walker. She was just conducting business. You want something, I want something. It doesn't need to be personal, right, sweetheart? He turned and gave her an oily smile that made my still delicate stomach turn in revulsion. Just talk, Kimber ordered. All right. Well, you want to give the men some privacy then, Princess? Jimmy asked, sitting down on the sofa by the door. I'm not leaving you alone with him, she told Jimmy. He shrugged, and before I even realized what he was holding, he shot Kimber with some sort of taser. She fell onto the floor immediately and convulsed a few times before going limp. Women, right? Jimmy laughed. My heart dropped to my feet, and I lunged towards Prescott. He casually swung the taser around to point at me. Settle down, Prince Charming. She's fine. We've been trying out some non-lethal stuff at these tables. He rolled it around in his hand and smiled. I think I like this thing. Fuck. Thanks, Sam. What do you do next? Get him to talk, buy some time. Why would Kimber talk to you? What did you tell her? Nothing, really, he shrugged. Threw her a bone on that Landy kid we stomped to death way back when. You remember. You were there. Shit, I almost forgot about that. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, I told her that I could give her information on that kid's condition, give her some hope. Gave her some information about the sheriff, too. All the information you gave her is useless. Or total bullshit, Jimmy smiled. She played her part. I'm done with her now, but I'm willing to fulfill my end of the bargain with you. What bargain? We'll get to that, Jimmy said as he pulled out a cigarette and lit it with a red Zippo. Fine. You told Kimber that Killian Cleary was dead. That true? Jimmy laughed. As a doornail. Why'd you kill him? You think I killed him? He was an unuseful and loyal business partner. Why would I kill him? Because you're a fucking hothead, that's why. Jimmy reclined back in his chair and took a long drag from his cigarette. You really don't know anything, do you? The mine's under new management. The fuck does that mean? It means there's a new sheriff in town, kid. I swallowed the bile that rose up in my throat. Sheriff Walker? What reason would he have to murder Cleary? Because Killian gave the orders to send Walker's daughter to meet the shiny gentleman. I shook my head. I can't fucking believe that she was working with you. Believe it, kid. You're not gonna give us the files on Borrasca, are you? Fuck no, son. That would incriminate me and my entire family. And the medical records for Kyle and Ann DeStaro. Trust me. There's nothing in there that would help you. So what are you offering? Jimmy put his cigarette out directly on the glass coffee table next to him and leaned forward. The chance to take down your father. I scoffed. Why would you want that? Look around, kid. This town's a piece of shit. White trash poor. Filthy shadow of what it used to be. When Walker took over, he changed the whole business model. We used to provide a service. It was fucked up the way we did it, I'll admit that. But in the end, people got to live in a rich town, raise families like they did before the water got all fucked. Drisking was a nice little place. People could be proud of it. Even you have to admit it. Drisking was a fucking facade. None of it was real. Oh, it was real to them. To your teachers, your friends, even Mira and Owen Grady. I heard you scared the shit out of them a couple weeks ago. Man, when I heard that story, I was laughing so hard. Didn't think you'd give up your anonymity so quick, seeing as that's the only thing you got going for you. Other than me, of course. Jimmy Prescott was off his fucking rocker. I felt like my skull was going to crack from the audacity of it all. Working with Jimmy Prescott was the definition of suicidal insanity. Anyway, kids, so yeah, your dad comes in, big dick on campus, and flips the whole system on its head. Suddenly, we're running a sex trade operation. The higher-ups are happy because now they get girls and more money than before. Walker didn't really care about money long as they keep supporting him. So every dollar we make from the stables goes right to the pockets of the upper echelon. No more money for the town. No more babies for the families. The Prescott legacy is in ruins. It's all straight up sex trafficking now. It's just unseemly, if you ask me. And you're sure the sheriff is involved in all of this? Involved? He's fucking running it, kid. Did you listen to anything I said? And you want me to kill him? Jimmy tipped his hat in my direction. No, I'd be more than obliged. Why can't you do it? I asked, watching Kimber out of the corner of my eye. She still hadn't moved. Because you're the only person on Earth who has a prayer of killing your daddy. I laughed. So you really believe that? You're dumber than I thought. You've got the wrong kid, Prescott. My dad would kill me without even thinking twice. It's Whitney that he loved. A shudder ran down my spine. Loved was not the right word. Nah, I don't believe that. He could have had you killed already. Spouting off in town like he did about stolen babies. He's left you alone out here, hasn't he? He knows where you are. The whole sheriff office does, but they're prohibited from moving in on you. On his orders. That doesn't make any fucking sense. I mean, why? Prescott shrugged. No idea. I think it's probably just a game. You don't play unless you cross the city limits. Walker has a thing about playing sick games with these kids. It's disgusting, if you ask me. We have very different ideas about what's disgusting. I think you'll change your mind on that before you leave town. You actually think the sheriff would let me get close to him, knowing I have a gun and intended to kill him. I think that there's a chance. He likes his games. Anyway, I'm certain he'd hesitate to kill you. You're his only son and all that. I think we both know that's bullshit. Jimmy raised an eyebrow at me. Holy shit, Walker. I'm impressed you knew about that kid. I don't even think he knows about his little bastard. And let's say I do manage to kill him. Wouldn't his deputies just shoot me? Nah. He's got a promising coup in the works. Been planning this for years. A fair number of his people are loyal to me. Even if that's true, you'd just kill me once it's over. Nah, I wouldn't do that. Why not? You'd be in charge, so why keep me alive? I want Borrasca exposed. I want all you sick fucks in jail. Kid, I don't want to be in charge. I don't want to do paperwork or give a shit about how the money is handled or where it goes. You could do that, though. I say we take down the sheriff and install you as a new big dick on campus. Pussy for miles, son. And you can't be getting a lot of that these days, walking around looking like you. Fuck you. I would never be interested in this deal, and I don't understand why Kimber thought I would be. Well, I never actually told her the part about putting you in charge. Well then, what part did you tell her? I promised her I'd tell her where her boyfriend was, and I told her she'd have a shot at killing her rapist. Her rapist is already dead. Nah. Jamie leaned back and put his arms behind his head. He isn't. My brain ran into a brick wall. I couldn't understand what he was trying to tell me. And don't look at me, kid. She wasn't assigned to me. Then I clicked. I threw up before I could stop myself, and the vomit ran down my pants to the floor. Oh, sick, kid! You tell the sheriff I'm fucking coming for her. Like your furies, son. Harness that shit, but you're gonna need a lot more than blinding rage. Here. Jimmy dropped a folded piece of white paper onto the coffee table next to his pile of cigarette ash. These are the coordinates of the new operation. Use your phone or something. Jimmy stood up and moved Kimber's leg out of his way with one toe of his boot. Can't wait to see what you cook up. Just remember, I need him dead, not incapacitated. He opened the door and walked out, then stopped abruptly on the other side of the threshold. Oh, and the sheriff always wears a bulletproof vest. Always. Probably even when he's fucking his wife. He laughed at his own joke. and shut the door behind him. As soon as it clicked, I stumbled over the door and locked it with both deadbolts. Then I collapsed against it and crawled over to Kimber, who hadn't so much as moved since she had been tased. I was worried that he'd had it on too high of a setting for her small frame. I rolled Kimber onto her side, a life-saving maneuver that an addict like me would need to know. And then, when I was satisfied that she was still breathing, I dragged the pillow down from the bed and shoved it under Kimber's head. I wanted to punch something, or break something, or beat someone to death. Not just anyone, my father, the man Kimber had known since she was 9 years old, the man who had watched her grow up with his own son. I was so fucking surprised after what he had done to Whitney. I'd killed my monster. I would kill him too. And perhaps worst of all, Kimber hadn't told me. She had kept it all to herself to protect me from this pain. I was the spitting image of my father. I had known it, and Prescott had confirmed it, but she never recoiled from me in disgust or looked at me with fear. I knew the sheriff had to die. Jimmy Prescott, sick, twisted fuck that he was about to get exactly what he wanted, but I knew I couldn't let him live either. Prescott couldn't help me alive. I was a liability. He knew that. He knew that I knew that. He was simply gifting me a lie that I could use to comfort myself while I prepared to go through with it all. Because I knew if Jimmy Prescott was coming to me for help, that meant that he had completely lost control of the situation, and if Jimmy, with all of his money and influence, couldn't have the sheriff killed, then no one could. Except maybe me, on the long shot bet that my father harbored any remaining parental feelings for me. I only had the beginning tethers of a strategy, but soon I'd have a full-blown plan. And I knew for damn sure that it couldn't involve Kimber. I wasn't going to bring her to the mine with me. I'd put her in too much danger already. I had to figure out how to execute this perfectly, because perfectly was the only way it was going to work. But for now, I just lie on the floor as the throbbing body ache ate at my coherence. A sharp pain began to push into my back between my shoulder plates. Fuck. I only had days left to live, and I didn't want to die sober. I didn't want to feel everything that you felt when you die. I wanted to be high as the fucking stars when my time came. I'd earned that at least, hadn't I? The sheriff knew I was here. Prescott was getting impatient. Time was running out. I pulled my phone out of my vomit-soaked jeans and dialed a familiar number. Yo, man, I need a favor.